The NFL is back. An exciting game on Thursday night football. Almost went into overtime, but not quite. The little pinky toe of Isaiah Likely, who outside of that one play was absolutely outstanding last night. The captain winner in showdown. But we're going to talk about Vegas strategy for this weekend. We got a couple of college football games on tap. And then we're going to cover the NFL slate. If you're not already a member, RPS 15 for 15% off. It's a perfect time to sign up. We also have, I believe they're live, a single sport package for NFL, for what's left of the MLB season, and for upcoming NBA, which you don't want to miss with the team that we have. Stats. It's Friday night. We got a showdown slate later that we're probably not going to talk much about here. The baseball season, we got a 12-game slate. But then it's the weekend that everybody waits for all year long. It seems like kickoff. We had kickoff for the college football season last week. Tomorrow is more college football, but then Sunday, the first main slate of the National Football League season. And you guys had a good week last week. Very good call on all the unders. A lot of college football games going under. A little bit of a miss with how easy Georgia just stampeded all over Clemson, but we'll give you guys a pass. Stats, what's going on?
Not much, man. I'm still recovering. I'm still a little bit housebound, so still recovering with the back, but we're getting better every day. And that game was not going to overtime, by the way. He was going for 2.
They were going for 2.
That's true.
He was going for 2, which was great. Which I know JBC was excited. I was as well, because we both had the +3, which was the ideal situation. I'm like, yes, he's going for 2, and then he was out by about a toenail. So yeah, that was a tough one last night.
That's right. I did JBC. I did hear on the TV that he was going for 2, but I was focused on the fact that, I don't know if he was in, because on NBC they have the high def camera that showed just the tip, if you will.
Yeah.
ABC was out of bounds. But how's your week going? What's going on?
No, it's been going well. Coming off a very, very big Sunday. Had a $80,000 win in golf and a $50,000 win in baseball same day. That was, that was a strong start to the week. A nice little booster before NFL. So pretty happy with that. But I'm ready to dig into these bets, man. NFL Week 1 is such a big edge compared to the rest of the season. So I love it. I fucking love it.
It's so funny you say that, because I hear so many people, and you've been with me. We've been together here for 13, 14 years betting together, and preseason. You'll get, like, Twitter's just bombarded with, you're a degenerate if you're betting preseason and everything. I have made more money in the preseason and the first few weeks of the NFL season than I have of any other weeks. And I hear people, they're like, well, you really don't know what to expect yet. And that's all people who think in week 7 they know exactly what's going to happen.
You know exactly what to expect in week 7.
Week 7, I know, because now I've got a good idea. But week 1, I'm a little iffy. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. So people are just funny, with the sports betting and DFS in general. We had a chuckle in the Discord where they're like, all right, here we go. Before the game last night, they were like, the NFL, we're going to start getting all the rigged. Everything's rigged. The games are rigged. Everything is rigged. And then last night,
and then it came down to the end.
Every bad call I just put in the Discord. This game is rigged, which there were a few, I thought, some questionable calls, but definitely not rigged games.
The GIF on Twitter of Mahomes making out with the referee was popular after the game last night. You guys mentioned edge. I mean, is this because you're poring over every play during the preseason, poring over reports, or just because you think the market is so inefficient the first several weeks of the NFL season?
I'll take this one. It's literally, you can break it down into 1 or 2 sentences, and it's that nobody is as good as people think they are, and nobody is as bad as people think they are.
Mm-hmm.
So people out here thinking, oh God, New England fucking sucks. Like, they're not that bad.
These are all professional football players, right? I mean, they're all at that level for a reason. Now, in baseball, with the way that the Chicago White Sox season is going, some people may think, but even they have some decent kids that they're developing that you're like, okay, on any given day or night, they could have a good game.
Yeah, well, and they benched Crochet. I mean, if he was still pitching, I don't like full amounts of innings, I don't think they would have lost that many games in a row.
Yep. Yep.
The NFL season is such a small sample size itself, in and of itself, right? I mean, you can't, right? You can't play a Major League Baseball. You can't play an NBA type of season. These guys, they get banged up enough. But we look at it like, you're 10 games into the NFL season. You've got a fair idea like who's in the playoff hunt, who's not. It's 10 games,
That's like mid-April in baseball.
Yeah, and it means absolutely nothing. So what you wind up with in the NFL is you'll have there maybe 3 or 4 teams who have absolutely no chance to make the playoffs. 3 or 4 teams who are just about a lock to make, maybe not even 4, maybe 3 teams that are like a lock to make the playoffs, and then everybody else. That's how you get the Tampas who got in last year. You get the Saints get in. You get a lot of mediocre teams. I'm going to even put Green Bay in there. Like a lot of these teams are just mediocre. The difference between 7 wins and 10 wins is how the ball bounces, how you get the turnovers. It's not that big of a difference. So we make it out to be. We also make the playoffs be the end all when, in my opinion, the regular season, especially in baseball, regular season means a whole lot more. Now, I want to win a World Series. That's why we play. But if you can't figure out after 162 games who the best team is, you kind of know. But we do the playoffs. We set playoffs up because that, of course, that gets attention. That gets us involved in wanting to watch it, the fans, the money, and all that. But the bottom line is, especially the NFL, it is very much a parity league. And just back to our original point, why the early season is easier to bet is because I think in general, like JBC said, more often than not, we just overvalue the teams that we think or perceive are going to be the dominant teams based on what they did last year. And inevitably, we're going to see a whole bunch of new teams make the playoffs.
Absolutely. And of course, during a 162-game baseball season, hard to pinpoint which game means the most during that long stretch. Whereas by the time you get to the end of November, December, which games are big games for these NFL teams heading into the playoffs. Of course, a massive edge for whoever the NFL's marketing, etc. team is over what MLB is doing. But we'll get to that. So we're going to cover 5 college football games. We're going to get right into that because we got a lot to get through here if we're going to talk about the NFL games on Sunday, maybe even Monday night as well. But JBC, we're starting Texas heading into Michigan. Texas favored by 7, minus 278 favorites on the money line. The 42 over under here. It's one of the lower games that we're going to talk about. I think the lowest game we're going to talk about. And interested in your thoughts on this game. And also, generally, do you think we're going to continue to see the trend that we saw last week with these games going under the totals?
Well, I think the market has adjusted a little bit. I mean, you may still see it to an extent, but I think by now people have caught on. The numbers have gone up a little bit, or come down a little bit. Sorry. Like for instance, this game opened at, I believe, 45 or 45.5, and now it's sitting at 42, 42.5. I mean, some of that has to do with the fact that Michigan doesn't have anybody that can play quarterback, but some of it has to do with the fact that what we spoke about last week with the unders. As far as like analyzing this game in a vacuum, Michigan just they have studs everywhere. But when you have quarterback play that atrocious, it's very tough for them to compete with a team like Texas, which is why you're getting a crazy line of Texas favored by a whole touchdown on the road. But I'm still inclined to lay the points with Texas as long as it's not 7.5. If you're getting 7, I still think Texas lay the touchdown. Michigan's not going to be able to score at all. I see this game being very low scoring, 21-10 ish, somewhere in there. But I think Texas covers, and I think it goes under.
JBC, what are your thoughts here? Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be with. I know you said JBC, but I'm going to be with JBC on this one as well. I think it's a big number, but they're at home -7. I agree. I would much rather get the 7. I'll lay a little bit of the juice. I think you can get. Trying to think there are some books out there with the 7-1-10, so you can get that. Yeah, I think the offense here for Texas, I think they've got a lot of weapons on this offense. They had a lot of skill players transfer in here. I just think the offense is that much better than this Michigan offense, but the Michigan defense can hang with them. So I think they're going to be able to keep this game kind of low scoring. I just don't see Michigan scoring at all. So I think I'm in agreement with JBC. I think the Michigan offense is going to struggle, but this Michigan defense will kind of keep them in the game long enough. I like the under actually better than I like Texas, but I'll take Texas with the under. If you can get the 42.5, I love that. But I'd even take the 42.
All right, we'll move on to the next game. Arkansas going to play the Cowboys. Oklahoma State, a 10-point favorite, minus 360 on the money line. 61.5 is the over/under stats. What are your thoughts here on this game? You don't get a lot of excitement for an Arkansas road game, but obviously the SEC this year, it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on the game, but at the total, I kind of like this one to the over. This is another one that got bet up quite a bit to the over, and I still like it. I don't see a lot of defense in this game at all. Arkansas dropped 70 last week, yet Oklahoma State put up 44. And this kid, Taylor Green, I mean, it's kind of, you watched Lamar, he's got a little bit of Lamar in him. I mean, he could run, he could pass. So I think they're going to put up a ton of points. I just don't know if they're going to be able to cover the 10. So I'm kind of neutral here on the side, but I don't see any defense by either one of these teams in this game. I think it's going to be basically a track meet. So I like the over.
JBC?
I'm of a similar opinion to him. I really think it's going to be a track meet. Arkansas showed us they can play some offense last week, even in the shortened game. Putting up 70 points on anybody is, proof enough that you can do something. And Oklahoma State doesn't exactly have a strong defense. I don't necessarily like Arkansas with the points, just because it's going to be such a high variance game with how many points are going to be scored. If you're on the Arkansas side, I do like the money line. I think that's worth a stab. I think let me check what it is right now. The Arkansas money line is at plus 310. You can get as high as plus 310. And I have trouble seeing how they're less than 25% to win this game, with how much scoring is going to go on, how many mistakes are going to be made. I mean, it only takes, like, as we saw last night, one toe and one, Lamar fumbling on his own 10-yard line. Yeah. Those types of giant plays will happen a lot more rampantly in a college football game, especially a high-scoring one. If Arkansas runs hot, they could easily win this game.
All right. Next one, Tennessee, a 9-point favorite, 355 on the money line, heading into NC State, a 60.5 total. JBC, we'll stick with you. Your thoughts here on Tennessee and North Carolina State?
It's a similar opinion to the last game. I really like it to the over, the 60.5. I don't see NC State being able to stop Tennessee at all. Tennessee's offense looks very, very good to me. They won by about a fucking billion last week. We had them last week. The line has gotten all the way up to 9. I see it. I think it keeps going. I think it goes to 10. So I like Tennessee laying the points, and I like the over.
Stats?
Yeah, I don't have too much of an opinion on the total, but I like Tennessee here. I would lay the points. I thought they just looked dominant last week. I know it's a weak opponent, but they put up a ton of points. I like the quarterback. I think they could do a little bit of both. I think they could throw it. They could run. I think they're going to be able to, handle a team in NC State that really struggled last week in their opener. 38-21. They pull the game out, but I don't think this team is nearly as. I don't think they're within a touchdown of Tennessee. I like Tennessee minus the points, minus the 8.5 or even 9.
9 points right now, just a few minutes ago on DraftKings. So at least that's where it's sitting right now. We'll move on to a team that I think both of you guys, when we talked last week, thought that could be some team that's going to do some damage here in the playoff. Boise State heads into Oregon. They are a 19-point favorite. The Ducks are minus 900, over under 61. Stats, I think, based on what I heard last week, you're going to be a fan of the Ducks here.
Yeah, I have a feeling this might be our one difference. I don't know. We'll find out in a minute. But I'm gonna back Oregon here. I'm gonna lay the 19 points. It's a little scary considering how bad they looked last week to Idaho. So I mean, when I'm taking that, I'm going to spin it as a good thing, right? So they're not coming into this game. There's several reasons they're not going to come into this game and take it lightly. One is Boise State's basically owned them in recent times. So I think they'll be well prepared. And I think coming off such a bad performance against Idaho with the talent that they have here on here, I mean, they basically got SEC type of talent on this roster. Can they put it all together? Is it going to take a few weeks? Hopefully not, because I think they should, from a talent standpoint, they should be able to run it up on this Boise State team.
JBC, do you disagree as stats expects?
Not entirely. My favorite bet on this game is the over. I don't think Boise State's obviously Oregon. I don't think will struggle to score like they did last week. That was really weird, and I think it was an anomaly, and I don't think it's going to happen again. But I don't think Boise State's going to struggle to score either. You know, they went down to Statesboro and put up 50-something on Georgia Southern. That was a game that they looked like they were going to blow them out and ended up, you know, giving up a bunch of points and having to come back at the end and kind of, you know, try a little harder than I think they were thinking they were going to have to. But, you know, I still lean toward Boise State with the points, but I like the over a lot better.
All right. Final game that we are going to cover for college football is everyone's favorite, Coach Prime, Colorado, heading in to take on the upstart. Is it fair to call the University of Nebraska Cornhuskers upstarts finally after I don't know how many years? 6.5, Nebraska favored by -225. 55.5 is the total here, JBC. Do you think Coach Prime is going to go and get the Buffaloes on a run here, or are you a believer in the people that live in the cornfields?
I do not see Colorado being able to stay on the same field with Nebraska. Nebraska's defense is going to be able to overwhelm Colorado's offensive line, I think pretty handily. And honestly, Dylan Raiola last week looked like he was throwing dimes. He looked every bit the number one recruit. And that is the reason I think that people have more faith in Nebraska than they have in the past. They usually aren't able to steal quarterback recruits from Georgia. So, you know, he looked fucking great. You know, I think this is going to be a blowout. I think Nebraska wins this game like 42-7. I like Nebraska in the under.
All right. Stats. Colorado heading into Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything JBC said. And on top of Raiola, I mean, they ran the ball really well with Emmett Johnson, almost 9 yards per carry last week. So I think they're going to be super balanced against that Colorado defense is pitiful. So I think they're going to be able to move the ball at will against Colorado. Colorado obviously could score as well, but I think the Nebraska defense will have a little something for them. They'll be able to hold them down just enough. And I think they win this game by two touchdowns at a minimum.
And you're thinking the under here as well? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I would lean towards the under, but I like the Nebraska side much more.
Okay.
Play the ladder on Nebraska. Lay like
I like that. Yeah.
Fucking 20 and shit.
A Nebraska blowout is how we end up the college football segment here. Once again, if you're not a member, use code RPS15, get 15% off. Also, if you either that or in Dexter's Cave there, Reese Bland. Very nice. Very nice. But you want to be in the Discord this weekend. We're going to have the college football projections done by our guy Bruce. Of course, they'll be up tonight. They'll be being played with and adjusted all throughout the morning, right up until lock, and then of course the whole night tomorrow. And tomorrow is UFC No Chase, so there's got to be a huge UFC card, and then of course Sunday, week 1 of the National Football League. And that brings us stats to the Sunday card, the Sunday betting card. We'll go through these games and get your guys' takes on where you think the lines are, where you think the edges are. And the first game is, as you guys talked about, not everyone is as good as people think, and not everyone is as bad as people think. And here are two teams that a lot of people are down on. Not a lot of people at Run Pure Sports, because we do have a lot of Bengals fans here at Run Pure Sports. But the Patriots head into Cincinnati. The Bengals are 7.5-point favorites, -340 on the money line. The over-under here, 40.5 stats. These Patriots games on the road, I guess, the last couple of seasons, you've been able to maybe see a little bit more scoring, but we've got a new coach in New England. We've got a whole new setup there. Are these games going to be all of a sudden more watchable than they were under Bill Belichick? What are your thoughts here on the Patriots heading into, or as Bill Belichick used to say, moving on to Cincinnati?
Yeah, they are moving on to Cincinnati, but well, the other story is the Cincinnati injuries at wide receiver. So we don't really know who's going to be playing at receiver. I'm kind of guessing Chase is in there, but we did get word, right, that T's questionable.
T's doubtful.
is he doubtful? So unlikely to play on Sunday. So some people are asking me, I was actually just getting some questions on this about Survivor, but you look at it, I always tell people, I'm just go to the line, especially with Survivor. I'm like, just go to the line. Just go to the line. They're like, does this change your opinion on Survivor bets? I'm like, go to the line. If this thing dropped like 3 points, which it never will on a T Higgins not being in there, maybe change your opinion. But the line really hasn't moved. It's still 7.5 from what I'm seeing. It's not a game I'm particularly love. I mean, if I was in a pool that I had to pick every game, I'd probably take the Pats plus the points. But yeah, it's a team I'm down on. We talked about it with Cincinnati, but I'm not particularly high on the Patriots either here. I think it will be fairly low scoring. One thing we didn't mention because we didn't really talk much about the other game, and if it's going to be a point of emphasis this year, that those illegal formation penalties were just brutal last night. This is going to be the thing, and we'll see tonight's game as well. If they're going to, these guys those were not illegal formations as far as I've ever seen in the NFL. I've seen guys line up atrociously and not be called. So if that's going to be a point of emphasis, that's something for the unders. We always want to look at these rule changes or points of emphasis. So that could be something that leads to a few more unders. I would lean here more towards the underside of this game. It's not a game that I'm particularly excited about betting, though. So whenever I'm not excited, I'll take the touchdown and a half point and the hook there. And but the under, maybe a little bit of a lean here towards the under.
JBC, where do you stand here on the Patriots at Cincinnati? And Stats mentioned Survivor. As we go through, if you guys have a particular team that you think is a good pick this week, maybe a less popular one, feel free to shout that out as well, JBC.
I'm heavy on New England this week. I don't think Cincinnati is going to be able to score much at all, especially if Higgins isn't in there, which he shouldn't be, and Chase is limited. They're saying that even if Chase is in, he's not going to be full go. They already probably weren't going to score that much this game. We know how New England can depress the scoring. They'll take the air out of the ball. They'll grind it out. And I don't see the Bengals getting out of the teens here. So I really like the under, and I like New England with the points. Jacoby Brissett is not a quarterback that makes a lot of mistakes. And this is a 19-13 game to me.
That sounds about right for what we've seen from the Patriots. And of course, with the Bengals missing two of their top two weapons, I think, when you think about Chase, you think about Higgins. We'll move on. The next game is Arizona. The Cardinals heading into, it's decent weather right now in Buffalo, at least for the next couple of days, until it becomes winter there once again. Arizona heading into Buffalo. Buffalo favored by 6.5, 47 is the line there, over under the Bills minus 298 favorites. JBC, I'm seeing some people talking about maybe this is the Bills' year. I don't know. We always seem to hear that out of this Buffalo team the last several years. But what are your thoughts here with the Cardinals heading into Buffalo?
Well, this is the year that finally Buffalo has gotten into salary cap hell and has had to cut a lot around the edges, with Diggs and with Gabriel Davis and a number of other players, defensive backs, especially you've got DeMar Hamlin back starting after he could hardly get on the field last year. And with Arizona coming in there with my man Maserati Marv and Kyler, I think that Arizona is going to be able to score on them. I don't think they're going to have a ton of trouble scoring. So I lean toward the Arizona side. I think that 6.5, 7 points is too much.
Stats?
Yeah, I've got to lean the other way. I'm just hearing it's the amount of people, and I do a lot of the Survivor stuff, but as you mentioned, this is another team that people are looking at in Survivor because it's close to a touchdown favorite. It's not really a pick I really would advise for Survivor because I think you're going to have some better spots with the Bills. But I can't tell you how many people are telling me they like the Cardinals outright. So that right off the bat is giving me some pause on Arizona. I kind of like I like the Bills just a little bit in this one. I think we've got not just Marv, you've got Coleman, another young wide receiver that we're going to see on the other side of the ball for Buffalo. And so I don't think the losses from the Buffalo side are going to be as significant, maybe as some people think. I've heard that's the other thing the other message I've been getting from people is, do you think this is the year Buffalo kind of maybe falls back, doesn't make the playoffs? I just don't think it's the case. I think this Buffalo team's still going to be strong. You still got the quarterback. This is a quarterback league. That quarterback will make plays. Look, is he as good as Patrick Mahomes? I don't know, but we saw what Patrick Mahomes did last year with no wide receiver core. So I think Josh Allen right up there with him, and I think this team will be fine. I think they cover the spread tomorrow or Sunday.
So you guys both thought that the difference, or Stephon Diggs leaving the Bills, made no difference. So that plays into your thoughts here as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Wide receivers are just, there's very few that really change. Chase is one of those guys who's going to affect the game. You know, a Jefferson.
Diggs is old. Like, he's old.
That's the problem. He's 31. Well, if you look at the end of their season, I forget from whatever week, let's call it like week 10 on.
It's terrible.
It was Shakir was the guy there. So I mean, Diggs was not at 31 years old. That's pretty much, you're over the hill now at wide receiver. So I'm not all that worried about them losing Diggs. He wasn't that big of a factor a lot of times. I think they've got other weapons, and we'll see what this kid Coleman could do.
All right, we'll move on to one team that you guys liked when we talked about the season last week, and one team that you guys were a little bit down on. Maybe thought the Miami Dolphins were a bit overrated this season. It's Jaguars heading into Miami. Miami favored by just 3 points. 49 is the over-under. We all know how explosive Miami's offense can be, and we'll see if we get some explosiveness back out of the Jacksonville offense. 166 is the money line on Miami. Stats, where do you sit on this one? Are you going all the way with Jacksonville, or do you think that this is a toss-up? Yeah,
I mean, for me, I'm just looking at the I'm trying to get the most updated line here. It's another one of those games. I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I would say Dolphins. I like the Dolphins a little bit more here than Jacksonville. This is another team I think that's coming in the Jaguars and Miami. I've seen a lot of people kind of down on Miami a little bit, picking them for third in this division, which I guess, you know, if the Jets are what people think
they're coming in third.
You like them for I know you like them for third place, right?
Yeah, third place.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do. I'm a little higher on them here, and you like, I know JBC likes the Jaguars as well to come out of the to win that division. I'm going to be on the Miami side though in this game. I think just slightly. I think Miami covers it. I think they'll have a hard time with stopping this offense. I think the Dolphins put up enough points. 3 points not enough for me. I just always worried about the Dolphin defense. So if Lawrence in fact was not playing fully healthy, maybe. And that's where I think JBC is on this one. Perhaps I'll be wrong, but I'm going to take the Dolphins at home. I think they cover the 3.5.
JBC, what are your thoughts?
I like Jacksonville. No surprise there. I think that Jacksonville looked great at the beginning of the season last year, and as soon as Lawrence got hurt, you know, that's when they started to go downhill. He probably should have taken himself out, but he's one of those guys that never misses games. But that's not the case anymore. And Miami's defense is nothing to write home about. I don't think they're that good. Jacksonville's defense is better. And Lawrence is a better quarterback than Tua. Like, he just doesn't, you know, he doesn't have Tyreek Hill on his team, but he's a better player. So, you know, give me the 3 with Jacksonville. Give me the money line. Give me all of it.
All right. Give JBC the dog in Miami. We'll keep it moving. The Texans, the team that surprised a lot of people last year. Thank you, CJ Stroud. Heading into Indianapolis, Texans favored by 3. 48.5 is the total. Pretty close on the money line. Houston minus 148. JBC, what do you think here? Do we get, I didn't see the news, do we get a healthy Anthony Richardson back for this game? And what do you think that means for the Colts-Texans matchup?
Well, last year, the game that Anthony Richardson initially got hurt, the Colts were playing at Houston and they were winning like 100-0.
Yep.
And you know, that was what the full strength Colts looked like against full strength Houston. Now we got the Colts at home and they're getting 3 against the Texans. I don't see what the logic is for taking Houston here. I'm going to be in heavy on Indianapolis. I like the money line. I also think the game goes over. I don't think, I think Indianapolis scores 30 plus.
All right. Stats.
I agree. I mean, the Colts without Richardson probably should have made the playoffs last year. I mean, that game came down to that final play of the year, and it was real close in Houston, right? So I think these teams were fairly close. I agree. I like Richardson. I think Richardson has a better year than Stroud this year. I'll call it now. As far as if we want to grade that on fantasy numbers, it'll be all about Richardson this year. I like what I saw. The only apprehension you have, and you can't really handicap that into the game, is does Richardson play a full year? I mean, I watched the 2-3 games that he played last year, and the guy just takes a beating. So hopefully he can kind of play through all. That's the danger of having these guys who can run. We saw it with Lamar. I mean, Lamar took some shots last night too. But I like Richardson in this game. I think the +3 I think is egregious at home. I think they're the better team. I'll take the points and the money line with the Colts.
A lot of discussion last year about how they're going to train Anthony Richardson to play a little bit differently. But then the downside is you take away the explosiveness. You take away some of the big play ability.
He's Cam Newton early career.
Well,
this is Cam Newton.
This is the issue with this is the conundrum you're in when you're a GM, president of a team. You've got a much tighter window on these guys. You've got to win with these guys who can run in a shorter time frame. I mean, it's just the way it is because they're just, how long are they going to hold up? To me, Lamar has been remarkable in how well he's held up, but there not a lot of these guys have been able to do it. I mean, you don't think of Andrew Luck as a running quarterback. He was basically Cam Newton as well. I mean, Luck was a great runner, and listen, he had other options in life, but not everyone wants to get the beating that these guys take when you run the ball as much as they do. So I like Richardson. I hope he stays healthy. I'd love to see a full season of him. But that's the conundrum in drafting some of these guys who are proficient at both.
All right, calling for a couple of upsets so far. Let's move on to the next game. The Vikings, man, what a disastrous offseason for the Minnesota Vikings. They head into MetLife. They're going to play the New York Giants. The Vikings, surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly, favored by 2 here. 41.5 is the over-under. Vikings, a -125 favorite only stats. What are your thoughts here? Is Daniel Dimes ever going to become the quarterback that the Giants thought he could become when they drafted him?
Well, I think we're going to see it this week. I think Danny Dimes gets the W. I think it's egregious.
Ooh.
I think it's egregious that they're getting points from this Vikings team. I think they win this game outright. I love it. I love the rookie. I love Neighbors. I think the Giants on the money line. That is the play in this game, and I think Daniel Jones will have I think Daniel Jones bounces back. I'm hoping that let's assume he's healthy here. I think he bounces back, has a pretty good fantasy season. They're going to be at the bottom of the NFC East, no doubt. I think they win this game though this week.
JBC looks like he has something to say. Now, I will say there were a couple of games last season where if you didn't have Daniel Jones, you weren't winning a single dollar, but it was only a couple of games. JBC, what are your thoughts here? The Vikings and the Giants. It looks like potentially you may have a different opinion.
You literally went into your spiel about a disastrous offseason, and I thought you were talking about the Giants. And then you were like the Vikings, and I was like,
the Giants couldn't ruin it any more than they have. So.
Yeah, there's some injuries there at quarterback for the Vikings. I mean, come on, you got to admit there was some.
We're gonna start with this. Sam Darnold's better than Daniel Jones.
No.
Okay, well,
no.
By a lot. It's not even close. Daniel Jones is fucking terrible, and the Giants' defense is terrible. And the Giants' offense is terrible. Everything about the Giants is fucking terrible. The Giants are worse than New England. Minnesota's going to come in there and beat them by multiple touchdowns. Jefferson is going to go for 150. Like this is going to be a beating. And the Giants are going to lose. The Giants are going to have a long year. And Jones won't be starting by like week 7.
You put me in the unenviable position of trying to defend the fact that Darnold may be a lot better than Jones. I can't really argue that point just because I don't think either one has been although Darnold did acquit himself quite well when he played in San Francisco last year. Jefferson, your favorite
JT, I
player?
think you JT, I think you could win 2-3 games with San Francisco if you went out there and swing it around.
You know, I no. I mean, you guys talk about not wanting to get a beating. That's where I'm at the point.
They don't even let the quarterbacks get hit anymore. You're not going to run. You're a pocket guy.
Yeah. Lamar was seeking out some hits last night.
Lamar was like that little toddler that's got a lot of the alpha toddler just running into the other players.
I think he caught some shit for not doing it in the championship game last year, and I think he had something to prove last night.
Stats, any rebuttal? Because that was a pretty heavy takedown by JBC.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to it. I deal with him, but he's the master of coming up with these ridiculous takes that like Sam Darnold is better than Danny Dimes. I mean,
that's not ridiculous.
It is a ridiculous take. It is
on its face. Just that part of the statement is not ridiculous. When you add by a lot to it,
that's what he likes to do. That's what he likes to do. The
Vikings are winning this game by double digits.
Put it this way: you're going to win. Someone will win a Millie Maker this year with Danny Dimes. No one will come close with a Darnold
because they're only going to have like 5 chances.
Somebody did win $1 million last year with.
But I'm saying like they're only going to have 5 chances this year before he gets fucking hurt. Speaking of, I'll just toss another one in there. Malik Neighbors is fucking overrated as shit. Like, and he's not going to do shit with Danny Dimes at all.
All right. It's a hot take. All right. If you're in the chat right now, you have a question, go ahead and pop it in there. If you're not a member, use code RPS15 and get 15% off of your membership. And this is the week to join. Big UFC card tomorrow night, UFC Noche at the Sphere. College football tomorrow. We've got, of course, NFL Week 1. We've got the remainder of the baseball season, then baseball playoffs, which historically have been very, very good to the Run Pure Sports team and the community. We'll move on. Next game, the Titans heading into Chicago. The Bears, JBC, favored now that they have Caleb Williams that everyone's very excited about. Favored by 3.5 here. 44.5 is the total. Bears a -180 favorite. Are you a believer in Caleb Williams and the pink fingernails, or are you going the other way? It's kind of hard to be excited about the Titans, but what are your thoughts here?
I don't think that Caleb's a bad player. I think that he'll be pretty good, but ultimately it's a rookie making his first start. I don't really like the Bears outside of their skill players, like as a team. I think both of these teams are going to end up between 6 and 9 wins ish, depending on how the cookie crumbles. So I'm going to take Tennessee with the points because I think they're pretty evenly matched.
All right, Stats. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's about time he's making some sense. So I like Tennessee here as well. Look, it's another one of those. I'm looking at perception. I mean, Chicago to me, I mean, I hear people talking about playoffs. I would calm down.
You're -110 to make the playoffs. What the fuck?
I would calm down a little bit, and especially week 1, you want to err on the side. I'm not saying you just fade every rookie quarterback, but you want to err on the side of fading the rookie quarterback. And you need a good reason for it. I like it in this spot, especially. I just think way overhyped on the Bears. I think both of these teams are kind of retooling. You got new coach in Tennessee. I also like I like taking some new coaches early. New coaches tend to do a little better than their predecessors. A lot of people, it was a little bit of a questionable move maybe. But I'll take I'm going to take Tennessee. I think these teams are very comparable as far as talent, and the Bears should not be favored by 4.5 over anyone.
All right.
Well, just about anyone.
Yeah. That's fair. Vincent Cano Stats wants you to talk just a little bit, if you could touch on why do you not tease across the 0?
Yeah, I mean, taking Houston and then teasing them across it just makes absolutely no sense, right? You're basically you've got dead number in there. I don't want to get into too much detail. Every half a point is worth a certain amount of cents, right? Per when you look at the VIG. So typically teasing across I mean, a game is going to, if the Colts win this game and they cover the game, the odds are pretty good they're going to win by more than 3, right? So you basically wasted all that juice on moving the game from a 3 to a 2. It's very rarely, or actually pretty much never, do you want to make that kind of a move. You want to take an alt line and move the game up. You want to take the Colts up, maybe. But typically you're never going to want to tease across the 0 just because the 1 never, you just don't hit, games don't land on 2, 1, 0, and then the other side of it, the 1 and the 2 all that often. Games will land on a 3 more than any other number, but yeah, it's just not a smart play.
Statistically,
don't
never tease anything that's not a Wong. So like, don't tease totals ever. Don't tease anything ever unless it's 1.5, 2, 2.5 up over the 7 or the opposite direction.
Yeah, we got a few of them this week.
Yeah,
there's a few of those Wong
don't
type
do
teasers.
anything else. Even teasing like 4 up to 10 is not right. Just don't do it. Just if you don't know exactly what you're doing, just take teasers off the board.
All right, I think that's good advice.
It is good advice. And if you guys are in the Discord, just at like if you're looking at, a better question would be, do you want to take, if the game is like -2, or we were looking at that Minnesota game, so JBC likes the Minnesota side of that, you might ask the question, should you take the money line or take the -1.5? That's something that is worth looking at because the points, like I said, are worth.
Let me find this Minnesota -13.5.
What's that? Well, that's different if you want to take them on our alt line. But I mean, if you in those type of thing, both sides of the game, do you want to take the money line? Whenever it gets under 3, I get that question a lot. So if you're in our Discord, I could always give you the answer to that. There's, it's kind of simple on how much each one of these half points are worth. So just let us know in the Discord chat.
Yet another reason to get into the Discord, and you're going to find out that JBC is teasing Minnesota and Jacksonville up to 15 each. So it's going to be
the pleaser.
It's going to be a good Sunday for NFL Week 1. We're moving on, though. And this game right here in Atlanta, the Steelers. My goodness, what a train wreck. Now, you talk about a train wreck, JBC. Can I say this is a train wreck offseason for the Steelers? Is that fair to say?
Trading your number 1 wide receiver for nothing, and then this situation with the quarterbacks is a little train wrecky.
Yeah, so the Falcons, who had a pretty good offseason, although it does look like Kyle Pitts, surprisingly, not surprisingly, maybe dealing with an injury right now. Falcons favored by 3.5, 41.5, -180 Falcons. The only thing I will say here, Stats, as we get into this game, is it doesn't seem to matter who's on the field for the Steelers. It seems that this team always keeps it close. They came down here, I think it was last season or the year before. They were a big underdog, and they beat the Falcons outright. Of course, a different collection of players. It's going to be a little bit more difficult maybe with a Justin Fields, Russell Wilson tandem at quarterback to keep things close. But what are your thoughts here on Pittsburgh heading into Atlanta?
Yeah, well, there's a reason that they always seem to do that, and that's the head coach, right? So, yeah. I mean, they've got maybe the best head coach, in my opinion, in football, and a guy who gets criticized. I mean, every coach at some point is going to get criticized, but I mean, if you how you criticize a Tomlin, the guy wins every year with some marginal talent that he's had, maybe certainly hasn't had the quarterback talent in the last couple of seasons, and still been able to win, find a way to get this team into the postseason. I mean, it's remarkable. You've got both of these teams with a new quarterback. I think the Falcons are coming in with a lot more hype. Everyone's on the Falcon bandwagon. I know JBC likes the Falcons to win that division. I think the Falcons probably do win the division, but again, we talked about it last week. Maybe I just think the price on them to win the division is just too high for me.
Right.
And then I'm going to kind of stay with that theme. I think the price on them in this game, I like Pittsburgh to come in here and keep this one close. I'm going to take Pittsburgh plus the points. I think a much needed change of scenery for Russell Wilson. I think probably a much needed change of scenery for Justin Fields. I think they get typically I don't like to back teams with the brand new veteran quarterback. I think it takes those teams a little bit of time. I always go back to the Tom Brady Bucks. Took them a little bit of time to get coordinated, but now you've got both teams in the same situation here. I'm going to take the points. I like the coach, and I think the quarterback bounces back a bit. I'll take the points with Pittsburgh.
JBC, my thought process on the Falcons last year, the biggest challenge, the only issue, the major issue was the coach. A terrible play calling, terrible decision making. Raheem Morris was good as an interim head coach. He's a well-respected coordinator. Still haven't seen him in this position, but excited to see a change here in Atlanta from the days of Arthur Smith. What are your thoughts on the Falcons and the Steelers? Seems like you might be a little bit higher on the Falcons here.
Well, Raheem did a decent job in Tampa when he was the head coach. I mean, it was a few years ago, but Russell Wilson's hurt, first off, John. So the line ticked up another half point this morning because Russell's calf is fucked up and now he's questionable. He didn't practice today. That's just another tick in the Falcons column. this is a line that just is going to keep going. It opened at whatever the fuck, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. Now it's 3.5, 4, 4.5. I don't know how high it's going to fucking get before the game starts, but people are going to just start fucking unloading on Sunday because the Falcons are going to destroy them.
All right. Stats, rebuttal?
No rebuttal. I'm going to sit and wait and pick off that number as high as it goes, and I'll take the Steelers.
If Fields ends up having to play, they're really fucked.
I'm fine with Fields plays in the game.
He hasn't been with the ones.
So if Fields plays, does that mean he's not going to return the kickoffs?
Yeah. I like it. Listen, I'm just hoping that they kind of take if Fields plays, kind of what they were trying to do with him in Chicago was they were trying to teach him how to be a quarterback. And he was fine with one read. That's when he looked really good. Like if he just had to hit the first, he wasn't really good at looking at, when they let him just play, he was good. I think they kind of constricted him in Chicago because they were trying to make him, they knew they weren't going to win, and they were trying to develop him into a passer. If Tomlin just says, Tomlin's all about winning. I mean, Tomlin's not looking to develop him. If they just let him play his game, he's tough. I don't have any problem with Fields playing. I'll take all the points. Keep jacking it up.
If Fields gets named the starter, any interest in him as a DFS sleeper?
Yeah, perhaps. I got to look at the full board. There's some better options out there, but
total's kind of low.
In 150 builds, I think. The total's still going to be a little light in this game, so not heavily. But in 150 builds, I think he could sprinkle in maybe 1 or 2%.
Falcons defense much improved from the days when it was a true track meet every single Sunday at Mercedes.
No, their defense is better. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on. Next game, Carolina Panthers heading into New Orleans, take on
my boys.
That's right. We're going to talk about, it's the Panthers, is it not? The Panthers are
Panthers. The Panthers are my boys.
All right. Well, we'll start with you then. We'll let you talk about your team first. Panthers heading into New Orleans. Saints favored by 4, 41.5 and 192 on the money line for New Orleans. Do we see improvement? Do we see growth? Do we see maturation year 2 under a new system, different coach with Bryce Young?
I mean, I think we saw what Dave Canales did for Baker Mayfield in Tampa, and Bryce really can't get much worse. This game last year would have been was like a 5 or 6 point spread. It wasn't anything crazy. Now it's still 4. The Panthers, I think, are going to be significantly better than they were last year. Not that that's saying much. They'll probably win 6 or 7 games. The Saints, I think, are going to be about the same or worse. And so I think these teams are roughly equivalent, and you're getting one team getting 4 points. I like the Panthers. All
right. We got Panthers on the board. Stats, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I think this is going to be a good year for Bryce Young. I think his talent shines through. You've got the quarterback whisperer there now. I think this is I think we could buy low here on the Panthers. I agree with everything JBC said. I think you're still getting this at a price. I think this is, this game maybe in 5 weeks, 6 weeks gets down to 3. So I think you get an advantage here of 4. I think we're underselling the Panthers, even though I do I did have that Saints bet. It's a long shot for me. I think the Panthers are going to be improved this year. And I think Bryce Young will be much better than what you saw last year. So I like the Panthers in this game to keep it close.
All right. Moving into the late window on Sunday, the Broncos heading into Seattle. Seattle favored by 6, 41.5, kind of a uninspiring total here. Stats, and Seahawks minus 250 on the money line. Of course, the big story in Denver is Bo Nix. But again, it's a rookie quarterback making the first start. You've got a lot of question marks on the Denver side of the football in terms of how they're going to deploy personnel more than anything else. Weaknesses at the wide receiver position. Do you agree with the assessment here that the Seahawks are going to win this one easy?
I don't know how easy, but I do like Seattle minus the points. The rookie quarterback situation. I'm going to take Seattle. I see this line has been moving in the Seattle direction as well. I like Seattle this is going to be probably. I'm on the fence right now if this is going to be one I pull the trigger on, but I'm close to it in taking Seattle minus the points. Again, this is you talked about Survivor. This is an interesting one in large Survivor pools. I'm actually taking this in my circuit pool because I think the Seahawks really don't have a lot of future value. They do get the Giants at some point middle in the season, but you're really not going to take them for a while. I think
you were just talking about how Danny Dimes was going to win the MVP, though.
What's that?
You were just talking about how Danny Dimes was going to win the MVP, though.
Well, we're looking at it on paper right now. That's why I'm saying you want to take Seattle now, but you don't know. Listen, we don't know, obviously, what's going to happen.
They have to face the GOAT. You want them now.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a game that possibly you could take them in, but who knows? So I think this will be one of their best chances, or one of the highest point spreads of the entire season at 6. I think this is the shot you take them, and like I said, especially in big pools. So I do like Seattle, and I think they cover this game.
Always tough to go into Seattle and play JBC, especially as a rookie, especially with a lot of those questions on the offensive side of the ball. Do you agree here?
Yeah, I mean, the only team with a better home field advantage than Seattle is Denver, and that's for different reasons. But, Bo Nix sucks. I don't think Bo Nix is very good. Denver, Judy's gone. They've lost a lot on offense. I don't think the defense is as good as they were last year. I think that Denver's really, really, really going to struggle this year. And Seattle minus 6, I think, is, as John alluded to, is the best Survivor pick by a significant amount, even in a vacuum. I think it's I think that Seattle has a better chance of outright winning the game than the Bengals. So I like Seattle laying the points. I think they win by multiple touchdowns. I think the Broncos are going to be pretty fucking bad.
All right, a couple of good nuggets there on both Bo Nix and Seattle in the Survivor pools. Moving on to the Raiders. Heading into Los Angeles, the Jim Harbaugh era kicks off here on Sunday. The Chargers favored by 3. 39.5 is the total, which is fairly disgusting considering the other games we've talked about, if you're thinking about it from a DFS perspective. And Chargers favored minus 148 on the money line. The Raiders team seems a little bit of odd fits everywhere. And then the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh not giving a lot of detail at all about what he plans to do or how he plans to deploy his personnel. Of course, some big losses. Maybe not, depending. Obviously, Austin Eckler getting up there in years. But they still have Justin Herbert. JVC, what are your thoughts here on the Chargers and the Raiders this Sunday?
It's a similar situation. Obviously these are drastically different teams, but it's a similar situation to Buffalo, where this is where the Chargers had to pay the piper to he thinks that I'm wondering which side he's on. I
don't know which game
the Chargers had to pay the piper as far as the salary cap and cut or trade a lot of their better players. And I think the entire roster is pretty fucking gutted. The Raiders really, took a step back at quarterback. I'm not even sure it was a step back. They still got all their guys other than Jacobs, who's a running back, so that doesn't matter. I like the Raiders with the 3. I think they went outright.
All right. Very interesting stats. You agree that this is a spot for the dog?
Yeah, I mean, not a strong opinion, but I do lean towards the dog here, and I think the big matchup. But they got the Chargers are going to have a rookie going up against Crosby. I mean, that could be the difference in the game. I mean, we could get they could be very disruptive to the passing game here. So I kind of like the Raiders a bit plus the points.
JSU agrees on the Raiders. Would you guys touch the Raiders in Survivor if you wanted to get freaky?
Oh God, no.
Fair enough. No. I thought that was the answer, but why not? Yeah. Dallas heading into Cleveland. A lot of drama, as always, is the case.
John's Cowboys.
But heading into Cleveland favored by 2.5, which I think is a little surprising. You guys will tell me if I'm crazy. 41 is the total here, and Cleveland favored minus 130. Stats, what are your thinking here?
I was a little surprised by that line too, and which if I'm surprised by a line that normally I've got to look at it again and say there's a reason that line is where it is. So I'm actually leaning here towards Cleveland as the bet, but definitely not a strong opinion on the game. We'll see. I mean, Lamb coming in late. I'm not seeing any restrictions on him, but one other, Watson historically, believe it or not, has not really been all that great against the spread as a favorite. So that's giving me a little bit of pause. But I'm going to lean towards the Browns and that defense. I think the defense is solid, and they probably win this game. But yeah, I can't. It's not a game I can pull a trigger on. Maybe because I have too much love for the Cowboys. I don't know.
JBC, obviously the Cowboys are not the Giants, but what are your thoughts here on their chances in Cleveland this week?
I'm very bullish on the Cowboys as on the whole, but the problem is I'm also very bullish on the Browns. And we went through this entire spiel last year where everybody told us the Browns weren't going to be any good, and we were like, but the Browns linemen are fucking insane, and they're going to dominate on both sides of the ball in the line in every game. And Deshaun Watson sucks. It doesn't really fucking matter who's playing quarterback when your linemen are that good. And we're going through the exact same conversation again, even after they won 11 games or whatever it was. And with Flacco,
with 5 quarterbacks, I think.
It's nuts. Like, now they've got Watson back. The Browns are a force to be reckoned with. I love their futures. I think the Browns win this game.
All right, we got 2-0 for the Browns. Couple games left, and we'll briefly touch on this Monday night game just because I think it's interesting from a matchup perspective and from a perception perspective. But the Commanders heading into Tampa Bay, the Bucs favored by 4. 42.5 is the total here. Bucs minus 192. JBC, what are your thoughts here? You think the Bucs take a step back from last season? You think Washington under Dan Quinn? I really like Dan Quinn as a head coach. I think he maybe didn't have the personnel that he needed, and certainly, of course, the decision making at points. But what are your thoughts here on the Commanders and the Bucs?
I think the Bucs defense is going to struggle a little bit. The offense and the offense I'll touch on that afterward. But I don't think Jaden Daniels is going to struggle the same way that the other rookie quarterbacks are going to. I think Washington's going to be able to put up a lot of points. I like this game to the over 42. Baker lost his golden goose in Dave Canales, but they've still got they still got Mike Evans and Godwin and everybody else, and they've got the gang all together. So they should be able to score some points too. I really like this game to go over, but I also like Washington.
All right, Staffs, your thoughts on the Bucs and the Commanders?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with JBC on this one as well. I'm going to take the points. I'll take the 3.5 with Washington. I like the quarterback. Don't typically like to take, like I said, don't typically like to take the young quarterbacks here early in the season. But I think the Bucs do take a step back. I think the Buc defense is terrible, and I think we'll see Washington score some points and probably win this game outright, to be honest.
All right, last game on Sunday night. It is Sunday Night Football, the Rams and the Detroit Lions. This is one that we'll see how the day slate goes that I'd like to be able to stay up and watch. But Rams are dogs here. 4.5-point favorites are the Lions. 52 total and minus 218 on the money line. Stats for Sunday Night Football. You think the Lions get what is expected to be the season that maybe they put it all together and get to the Super Bowl off on the right foot? Or do you believe that the Rams come in here and start to rebound after a little bit of a down year?
Yeah, I mean, this is the house that Stafford built, isn't it? That he's coming back. But yeah, I don't love the game. I like I think this is going to be a high scoring game. I think we'll get the over in this game more than anything. The 4.5 is a little tricky. I'm kind of leaning towards the Lions, but I feel more confident that they just kind of go. This game gets into a shootout. A whole lot of Stafford. Obviously, he's got a ton of weapons there, and I feel just better about this game going to the over. I just don't like Detroit's defense at all. And I think that's when you ask the question, are they going to the Super? They're not going to the Super Bowl. I don't think this defense is strong enough to get them to the Super Bowl. You got to be impressed with what Goff has been able to do there. I think Goff is one of the most underrated guys in football. I think he's finally getting some credit. Went to a Super Bowl with the Rams, played well here with Detroit. He's got weapons. I mean, Amon-Ra, as good as he gets in the league. So I just think with all the offensive weapons that you're going to have on the field in this game, in the dome, I think we get. I think this game goes to the over. Should be a fun game to watch.
JBC.
I agree with him totally on basically all of those points. I think it's going to be a shootout. I don't think Detroit's going to struggle to score. 4.5 gives me a little pause, but at the same time, if you got a high scoring game, you're going to have a lot of variance in the scoreline. The spread probably doesn't end up mattering. So if you're going to lay the points with Detroit, I don't really have any problem with that. If you're going to take the Rams, I think you should take the money line. But I like the over a lot more than I like either side.
All right. And Brandon is in here talking about Jameson Williams. Well, we'll see if you're tuning in on Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon for the showdown slate. We'll have thoughts on Jameson Williams. Last game is Monday Night Football. We'll touch on this quickly and then get out of here. Jets heading out to Santa Clara to take on the 49ers. We talked about the Jets kind of a lot last week in terms of how hyped they are once again now that Aaron Rodgers is back. Niners favored by 4.5, 43.5 total, and -2.5 on the money line for the Niners. JVC, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, the Jets defense, I think, is strong enough to keep it, the scoring a little depressed. So I do like the under 43.5 to a degree. But, the one I like more is the Jets getting the 4.5. I think Rodgers will pick right up where he left off. I don't think he's going to have any problems. He's not going to make a lot of mistakes, which is what it would take for the 49ers to be able to cover a number like that. I think you're looking at a game that ends up like 21-17-ish. Either way. And so I like the Jets with the points. I like the Jets money line. I like the under.
All right. Stats. Jets.
With the Jets, how many can anyone think of it? 'Cause I wanted to go back and look at this in like the last 10 years. How many quarterbacks outside of someone who came out of like a Brock Purdy who came out in, although they didn't go to the Super Bowl that year, how many quarterbacks who really weren't drafted in like basic season-long fantasy leagues have made it to the Super Bowl? I've been in a bunch of drafts, and
Tom Brady, Kurt Warner.
Rodgers is good. Yeah, guys who just were unexpected that you saw. But I mean, a guy like Aaron Rodgers has played in the league for, however long he's played now, and not being drafted, I'm like, that's odd. They've got weapons. So I know fantasy doesn't necessarily, it's not real life, but it's very odd that a team that everyone thinks is going to go to the Super Bowl has a quarterback that no one wants to put on their fantasy season-long fantasy team. Just interesting. And I wanted to go back and look at it. I haven't done that yet. But anyway, I'm actually on the other side of this game. I think the Jets, for that reason, I think the Jets are getting way too much respect. 4.5 is still a big number, but I like it here. I'll take the team. I'll take that defense, and both defenses should be solid. But I think a 40-year-old quarterback coming off the injury that he's coming off, not having played, he really hasn't played with this team now. He's practiced with this team now for over a year, but hasn't gotten on the field. So I was pretty much cautious with him last year getting off to a hot start. I don't know how hot a start he can get off to. We saw it with Deshaun Watson. We talked about Deshaun Watson when he was suspended. It's going to take him some time to get back into the groove. He was out for a year. I think the combination of being out for a year and a new team and being 40 years old, going against the best team in the NFC, I think that's a tough ask on a Monday night game. I like San Francisco quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm definitely wait and see on the Jets and Aaron Rodgers in particular.
Slobbing the Giants and going against the Jets.
Yeah, I know, man. I'm not slobbing the Giants. They're not going anywhere, but
Daniel Jones.
I mean, Danny Dimes better than expected. Aaron Rodgers
49ers. John said 49ers by 50, and Daniel Jones wins the MVP. We all heard you.
All right. Those are the two hot takes that we're going to leave you with before week one. Aaron Rodgers is not Tom Brady. Before week one of the NFL season, if you're not a member RPS 15, that'll get you in. Get in the Discord before this weekend. We'll be back here next week to talk about more of the lines and spreads and winners for week two. Until then, for JBC, for Stats, I'm JT Hayes. Good luck.